Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
For centuries, ancient cultures knew the secrets to longevity, vitality, and healing. Now, modern science is catching up. Ageless Blueprint is a podcast that will reveal the modern secrets of better health and a better life. Join Dr. Eldred Taylor here today and every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. As together we discover the secrets to better health through science and spirituality. A better life with Ageless Blueprint starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here. I am Dr. Taylor, the Spiritual MD, and welcome to Ageless Blueprint. And I am really excited because I have a special guest, and it may be a subject that you wouldn't think that we were going to talk about, but we are going to talk about an ageless system that has been in your body since the beginning of time, but I never learned about it in medical school, and I wonder why. It's called the endocannabinoid system, and you may have heard of CBD, and CBD is for cannabinoids, all right? And you may have related cannabinoids to marijuana or THC, but we're going to explain all of that today with the expert. And I met him because his company has produced CBD that you can actually inject IV, and I started using it with my cancer patients. I've started using it with patients who may have any type of condition that overexcites their nervous system. And you've heard me talk in the past about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and how the sympathetic is not where you want to be. You only want to use your sympathetic nervous system in emergencies. You don't want to use it 24/7. And we are kind of in a sympathetic nervous system overdrive from the moment we wake up till we go to bed. And even when we're sleeping, we're still running on overdrive. So we're going to talk about the endocannabinoid system. Your body actually is designed to accept endocannabinoids or cannabinoids. And so you have receptors for it. So they must be of some use for the body, or God wouldn't have given you receptors for it. So let me be quiet. I want my guests to have as much time as possible. This is Mr. Dan Reed with Pico CBD IV. Can we... Hey, Dan, how are you doing? Now I'll be honest with you. We've talked on the phone, but we've never talked face to face. So hello, good morning. And I just want to start. Why don't you just tell me your story, how you got into this, how the company got started, and then we'll talk about the different ways that endocannabinoids can actually be used for different conditions.
Yes, of course. Yes. Thank you for having me, Dr. Taylor. I do appreciate having me on so we can create awareness around this system. But I haven't been in this industry very long. We started back, I want to say about 7 years ago, where we were creating cannabinoid products, things like tinctures, gummies, pain creams. And we started with oil-based products because these are lipids, right? They're oil soluble. And, the absorption rate on these aren't great. You're looking at 6 to 10% in that range. So we started working with creating water-soluble products for better absorption rates. And when you look at CBD that's water-soluble, it looks like milk. It's a very milky looking color. And it's not until you start getting lower into the nanoscale. So we started working with nanotechnology. And as you get it lower on the nanoscale, like really low on the nanoscale, it can start to become somewhat translucent because the particulates are small enough for light to pass through. And the reason why we started getting it really low on the nanoscale is because we had clients that were looking for clear solutions because they wanted to put them in beverages. And our chief science officer, Miles, he created something that had never been done before. He was able to get it at the lowest level on the nano. And then we started getting the questions. Could you guys make this? Could you sterilize this to utilize for intravenous delivery? And what he was able to do is something that's never been done before. He was able to get this below a nano level. So for those of you that aren't familiar with nanotechnology, 1 nanometer is 100,000 times smaller than the width of a human hair. So the next measurement below nano is a picoemulsion. So he was able to get it below the nano scale. And by being able to do that, we could safely sterilize this, which is something that's never been done. So there's two things. One, you have to make it water soluble. Then you have to be able to get the particulates small enough to be able to pass through a sterile filter. And that's what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah. So I tell you, I've been using it, and you came out with a webinar, and it just blew my mind. All the conditions and all the things you can use cannabinoids for. So if you could, why don't you can you just talk about how massive that system is in your body and how many areas it can affect?
Yeah, it's it's a sin this isn't being taught about in standard medical school curriculum. And to be fair, it's a relatively new discovery. It was in the 1990s when they discovered this system. And I'll kind of backtrack and bring you through the history. Cannabis is something that has been utilized by physicians for thousands of years. The very earliest written documented record of utilizing cannabis for health and wellness conditions stated by a physician goes all the way back to ancient China. This was 4,700 years ago. And it was Emperor Shang Nun's Pharmacopoeia, where they stated that they utilized this for gout, malaria, rheumatism. And you even have documented evidence in ancient Egypt, ancient India. You can go back to the ancient Roman and Greek days. You have documented evidence of physicians utilizing this for multiple different health conditions. Now, fast forwarding to more modern history, in the 1800s, there was an Irish physician that went out to India and he was studying cannabis. And when he returned back to Europe, he started to introduce this into European medicine. And then it spread way over to the West. I want to say it was the mid 1800s, where we had American physicians that were utilizing this. This was commonly prescribed in doctor's office in the United States. And even in the early 1900s, this was on the shelves of pharmacies. They had cannabis extracts in tinctures that people were able to get. Now, and this is kind of a long story just to kind of get to the discovery of the endocannabinoid system. But the propaganda really started back then in the 20s and the 30s, and they started to demonize cannabis. They were portraying it to be something that's very dangerous. And ultimately, the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act was initiated, where cannabis became illegal in the United States. And we almost lost the use of this plant for over 100 years. Now, there are a ton of doctors that we owe a lot of thanks to, because they continued to work with this plant, even though that it was illegal. And in 1988, there was an incredible discovery. They were actually studying the effects of THC on the brain, and they started noticing an abundance of receptors becoming activated. It was a high number of receptors, and they've never seen this happen before from a plant source. So this led them to believe that there must be something endogenous within the body to activate so many receptors. And it was 4 years later that they discovered anandamide, which was the body's first endogenous cannabinoid, known as an endocannabinoid. And through the early 90s, they started to discover that we had receptors everywhere within the body. They discovered another endogenous cannabinoid called 2AG. Ultimately, this discovery led to the endocannabinoid system. Now, since that point, research absolutely exploded. In the list of conditions that they were doing research on is very extensive. I mean, at this day and age, you can Google any human condition followed by CBD clinical study and you can find it. But ultimately what happened is dozens of studies turned into hundreds, turned into thousands. And the 2018 Farm Bill was passed because there was far too many benefits, natural benefits for human beings than any type of drawbacks that they were portraying. And that's when hemp-derived cannabinoids became legal. So it's important to kind of set the table of, you know, the history of this plant to where we are now. So this system, it's connected to everything. We have, since the day we were born, our body has operated on cannabinoids. They're called endocannabinoids. And these endocannabinoids, they bind to cannabinoid receptors. And we have trillions of these in our body. And the traditional endocannabinoid system, we have CB1, CB2 receptors, but we also have receptors outside of the outside of the ECS, like the TRPV1, TRPV2, TRPVA, the GPR55, the PPAR, the 5-HT. All of these are they can be activated either by endogenous or exogenous cannabinoids. So we can dive into all the different systems that this connects to. But that's kind of a little bit of the history. And I just wanted to give you that, how this was discovered.
You know, that's why I call this podcast Ageless Blueprint, because, you know, things have been handed down through the ages. And I always like to say, if you want new ideas, you need to read old books, you know. And so, you know, this has been around since ancient Egypt, ancient China. And, you know, we think that everything is something's new under the sun, but it's not. We just need to go back and study medical history before it was all this technology. I mean, people lived, you know, before there were hospitals and all this stuff. They lived good lives. So that's very, you know, that's why I call this ageless blueprint, because we need to go and look back in history and see how people survived before we got into this hyper sympathetic, you know, state of being. So anyway, well, let's just go. Let's talk about, you know, some things like, you know, some common things like depression and anxiety or cancer or whatever you think is, you know, is something that people, you know, commonly use other drugs for. And I always say that, you know, your body has a pharmacy in it, you know, just like it says, it has natural cannabinoids. So, well, let's just talk about some common conditions.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, the way that we look at the cannabis plant, we look at it as nature's pharmacy in a plant. And just to touch on what you were saying, as far as, you know, we need to read these old books. I mean, plant-based medicine is what we use for thousands of years, right? It's not until the last 100+ years that we started looking at these synthetic alternatives. But when it comes to conditions in the body, and again, I like to put this onto the endocannabinoid system. This system connects to all of our major vital systems. So our central nervous system, our immune system, our endocrine system, our reproductive system, our respiratory system, our cardiovascular system, our muscular system, our skeletal system. The endocannabinoid system doesn't just connect to these systems. It helps modulate every single one of these systems. If there is an imbalance in one of these systems, this is where the endocannabinoid system steps in. Basically, it is constantly monitoring these systems. And what its main job is to do is to keep all systems in the body in homeostasis. So when the body becomes compromised due to disease, illness, injury, stress, anxiety, depression, any of these things take place in the body, it creates an imbalance in the body. And the ECS then wants to step in to recreate that harmony, restore that balance. And it does that by calling for the genesis of new endocannabinoids. Now, those will be released and traverse to the area of the body that has become compromised, and it binds to that cannabinoid receptor. And once this connection occurs, it opens it like a lock and key, which can open a communication pathway that enhances cellular communication. And there's a cascade of signaling events that take place where the body goes through a natural healing progression. The ECS wants to restore balance when things become compromised. And it's doing this 24/7, 365. It is always working for you. But to touch on what you were asking, it's, we always have to be careful about the way that we word this, right? Because this isn't something that is FDA approved. And so we discuss a lot of what the endocannabinoid system does, and that we're just enhancing the system with the plant-based cannabinoids. But when it comes to cancer, it's really too early to tell. I do work with a good group, many different integrative oncology clinics, and they have fully incorporated this into their protocol. So this is something that can provide comfort for them, can provide quality of life. And what's difficult to pinpoint exactly what it's doing is a lot of these doctors are stacking 10 to 12 different modalities, right? Are they getting home runs where they're having massive success stories? Absolutely. But the fact is, we don't know exactly what it is. And it's hard to ask these doctors when they're working with somebody that's stage 4. Can you just use the Pico IV to see what it's doing? But I can tell you this, they have fully incorporated this into their protocols due to what they are seeing for sure. Specifically.
Well, that's what I started doing. And if nothing else, it just calms some of the fear, that the patients have. It allows them to, and if they're having pain or symptoms from the chemotherapy or radiation or whatever, it helps with pain relief. It helps with some of the anxiety. So I'm from the old school. I'm 64 years old. So I grew up where, marijuana or cannabis was a gateway drug, and I'm beating down my kids, don't do it. And now I'm totally open to it, and my kids are like, oh wow, I don't want to call you a hypocrite, but I'm like, I was like, when my mother used to say, when you know better, you need to do better. So I know better now, so I'm an advocate of this. And as patients get older, probably sleep is the most important thing that seems to dissipate, and sleep is so important for your recovery. And so let's talk about how cannabinoids can help with sleep.
Yeah, it's the ECS is very connected to our central nervous system. The endocannabinoid system connects to our circadian rhythm, and it has a calming effect. So we have cannabinoid receptors in the brain, all portions of the brain, but it's connected to certain neurotransmitters within the brain, like GABA, which some of these have calming effects. So we are hearing that people are having tremendous sleep post infusions, or even people that are utilizing tinctures and things like that. There's a deep connection there, being able to help people get restful sleep. And that's one of the things too that's important for the endocannabinoid system to rest. This is a system that's working 24/7, 365. All systems need a break here and there, right? It's constantly monitoring for imbalances in the body. So when you were getting restful sleep, you're actually recharging your endocannabinoid system.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I started taking some Delta 8 gummies about, I don't know, a year ago. And I'll tell you that, I have my sleep watch on, and I mean, it greatly improved my sleep. My sleep scores have gone up. I mean, I was sleeping 3 hours a night. I was waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep. And I knew it was deleterious to my health. And that really made me a believer, especially when I saw I was getting more deep sleep, more REM sleep. So I'm truly I'm all on board, and we use them in our practice. We have some patients who swear by it, and it's 10 times better than Ambien or Xanax or Ativan or any of those benzodiazepines or anything. So I'm a big proponent for using it to help people sleep.
Yeah, it naturally connects with the body's own melatonin system, to where it's definitely one of the bigger compliments that we feel or that we hear. And kind of to touch back on what you were saying about the cancer, the the standard, right, in the medical industry is chemo and radiation, which we know just absolutely torches their immune system. So one great thing about the endocannabinoid system is it works hand in hand with our immune system. We have CB2 receptors connected to our immune cells. So CB2 receptors, that's the cannabinoid 2 receptors. These are attached to all of our immune cells, our macrophages, our T cells, our B cells, our neutrophils, mast cells, natural killer cells. So by utilizing plant-based cannabinoids, if you think about post, chemo and what they go through, and so many people that are doing the high dose vitamin C, this is something that pairs very well with that and could potentially help rebuild that immune system.
Yeah, that's where I use it. I use high dose vitamin C with my cancer patients, and I see great things with that. Whether they're going down the conventional road and getting the chemo and radiation, using the high dose IVs, vitamin C with the CBD, they get through the chemo better. They respond better to the chemo. The patients will go back to their oncologist and like, wow, the chemo's working so well. They don't know that they're getting the vitamin C and the CBD with it. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of high dose vitamin C, and adding the CBD just enhances it. So I love it. I really do. And the patients really respond well to it also.
So here's some of the things that are really important about Pico IV, and it has to do with the particle size. As we were discussing how the product was made, that we had to reduce the particle size. We got a very good portion of this below a nano level, roughly about 800 picometers at its smallest point. So the cannabinoid particulates that are going into the bloodstream are roughly 10,000 times smaller than a red blood cell. So this has the ability to get into areas of the body, other therapies, other modalities, and certainly no other cannabinoid has ever been able to reach. So it's able to get to receptors that are in the brain, right? This is something that can easily cross the blood-brain barrier, but also receptors that we have deep in the tissues and deep in cells. So we've worked with cannabinoids, like I said, for about 7 years, and we've worked with plenty of doctors and nurses. We know this technology is massive because the stories that we're hearing, there's not a week that goes by that we don't have goosebumps on our arms from what we're hearing from some of the doctors, physicians, and the nurses that we work with. So really, there's two things that have been accomplished that have never been done before. One is creating something that is sterile, right? And then the other is the particle size. So combining these two into one product. Wanted to touch on that real quick because it is into areas of the body just we haven't seen it reach before.
Well, hey, let's answer the big question. The difference between cannabinoids and THC and marijuana, because it all gets grouped together. So it's like, oh, you're giving patients marijuana IV, or so let's separate all that out.
And it's a challenge that we come across because there is that stigma, right? And you could thank a lot of that to old school propaganda, right? Portraying this as it's something, devil's lettuce or whatever you want to say. The truth is, this plant is absolutely incredible. There are over 200 different cannabinoid compounds in the cannabis and hemp plant. Over 200. THC is just one. CBD is just one. And beyond that, we have over 200 different terpene profiles. All of these have different therapeutic effects, so to speak. And a lot of these we're starting to investigate. But the difference is THC is loaded with THC. So there's a line down the middle between cannabis and hemp. Cannabis is heavy over 0.3% THC. This is more for recreational use, but it also has a ton of therapeutic effects because THC actually binds to the CB1 receptor perfectly, just as anandamide. Anandamide is our endocannabinoid that binds to the CB1 receptor. THC can do that. So the difference between cannabis and hemp has less than 0.3% THC. So these are going to be your non-psychoactive cannabinoids like CBD or CBG, CBDA, CBGA. There's a ton of different cannabinoids in this plant that are non-psychoactive. So that's, education that we just have to continue to push out there, that this isn't about getting high. This is about getting healthy. This is about stimulating a system in your body that has a biological connection to this plant.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because it's so much, again, propaganda. And I was a victim of that propaganda, growing up when I saw somebody. And again, I mean, it's illegal. So it's more than propaganda. I mean, I would, you see somebody smoking marijuana, you think they're a degenerate,
Yeah.
and that's just, and most of the time I tell patients, if you're craving sugar, it's because your body needs something. It's just picking the wrong thing. It needs energy, and so it's craving sugar. So you got to think that if people are doing illegal things and it's because the body needs something. It's trying to fill those receptors. That's how I look at any kind of craving. The body is wanting something. Sometimes it picks the wrong thing, but it's trying to create or satisfy a need. And if you have those many receptors for cannabis, your body must need it.
Yeah. Trillions. I mean, this is a system that, like I said, is working 24/7, 365. It's I think one of the main things I think a lot of your listeners are going to want to hear is, what is it good for, right? And we can talk about a lot of things that, as I mentioned, you could Google any human condition followed by CBD, and the study's been done. There are hundreds of studies happening currently. And here's something that is important for everyone to understand is Big Pharma has been studying this endocannabinoid system for a long time. And right now, what they've been doing is they are extracting natural molecules from the hemp plant. They're putting them into the human body. They're studying the receptor reaction. Based on their findings, they will reverse engineer that natural molecule and then recreate a synthetic version. They have over 100 synthetic cannabinoid compounds in phase 2, 3, and 4 studies today, right now. And there's over 500 patents filed for synthetic drugs to target the endocannabinoid system. So they understand the power of this system. That they're not teaching this, of course, but they're getting ready to roll out a significant amount of synthetic cannabinoids. And some of the reason is, as I mentioned, that this is connected, the ECS is connected to, it can help modulate, can help regulate your your central nervous system in many different ways in the brain. The ECS is very neuroprotective, and it does this multiple different ways. One are endogenous cannabinoids, endocannabinoids. They act as antioxidants in the brain, and they can scavenge for free radicals. The endocannabinoid system is very involved in managing inflammation in the body, but as well as the brain. It can keep inflammation down. As we know, this is a big contributing factor to neurodegenerative diseases. It also can help with neuroplasticity, neurogenesis. And this is just talking about the endocannabinoid system, by the way. This has nothing to do with plant-based cannabinoids. Also can protect against excitotoxicity because this is very involved in regulating the way that your neurotransmitters fire. So very involved in neuroprotection. Now, as I mentioned, these plant-based cannabinoids, they're small enough, the particulates are small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. So there have been numerous studies on this helping, not our product, but plant-based cannabinoids helping for anxiety, helping for tension, helping for, various different mental conditions. So this is exciting when we know how neuroprotectant that the ECS is, and that we have cannabinoids that can stimulate the system in the brain. And we are looking into like neurodegenerative diseases. So this is an area of interest for us for sure. Now, just to keep touching on areas that we're seeing incredible benefits in, one would be inflammation in the body. So the endocannabinoid system is very involved in managing inflammation in the body. It can downregulate pro-inflammatory cytokines. It can inhibit the COX-2 pathway with the right signal. So some of these plant-based cannabinoids can signal, can support, can stimulate our ECS to do these repairs or to balance things out in the body. Ultimately, that's what the ECS does. It tries to maintain balance in the body.
Just to make sure everybody understands, when he's talking about neuroprotective, he's talking about protecting you against dementia and Alzheimer's and any kind of mental deterioration. And neuroplasticity means that your nerves can regrow. You can, if you have brain trauma or any kind of nervous system damage, we used to think the nerves could not regrow, but that neuroplasticity means that even if you have a stroke or whatever, your nerves can go around that damaged area and reconnect. Isn't that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The ECS is very involved in all of that, which is important. So like good molecules in the body, they decline over time, right?
Yeah.
So as we get older, our body doesn't produce as many endogenous cannabinoids that we once did when we were young. Now, we have enzymes in our body. The average lifespan of an endocannabinoid is roughly 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So we have enzymes that are involved in the genesis of them, but then we have different enzymes that are involved in the destruction of them. So we make these on demand. Our body can make hundreds of millions to billions of endogenous cannabinoids a day because they are called when they are needed from the endocannabinoid system, when there is an imbalance in the body. But once that endocannabinoid binds to that receptor and it does its job, it sends its signal, then the receptor broadcasts to the body what it needs to do. The enzymes will rapidly destroy them. And they do that so we don't have too many endocannabinoids in our body to oversaturate receptors. That's the way that the body was designed. However, as we get older, we stop producing as many endocannabinoids. And you can contribute this to like testosterone or NAD or glutathione, right? But we also have enzymes that can become overactive and they can actually destroy endocannabinoids before they actually reach the receptor. And this is a theory that Dr. Nathan Russo has been working on, which is called endocannabinoid deficiency. So this system was always designed to catch things early. It's my opinion that where health conditions come from, or maybe even serious disease comes from, are people that are deficient in endocannabinoids, because this system is designed to catch things early. When the body becomes imbalanced, it wants to recorrect that. So if we don't have enough endogenous cannabinoids in our body to do what it was always designed to do, then problems can start to manifest and turn into real serious problems. So endocannabinoid deficiency is something that is very serious and can absolutely be a massive contributing problem to health in America. Now, the challenge is when we first got into this, I thought we would just be able to test somebody's endocannabinoid levels, that it would just be as simple as doing a blood test. It's not. And you have to get, if they're very invasive, you have to get into the brain or do it like a spinal fluid tap to actually get an accurate read on how many endogenous cannabinoids are in the body. But also the problem with that is even if we were to do that, it wouldn't give us an accurate reading because we make these on demand. So it's going to fluctuate depending on what you're going through, what type of stressors are happening in your body, what type of imbalances that you're dealing with. So it is always going to be a challenge to be able to pinpoint exactly how many we have in our body. Now, we're working with a couple of genetics companies where we're looking into doing genetic SNPs on the endocannabinoid system itself. We can do genetics testing on the enzymes that are creating our endogenous cannabinoids, and then we can also do genetics testing on the enzymes that are rapidly destroying our endogenous cannabinoids. So we can find out if we have overactive enzymes that are destroying our endogenous cannabinoids, which would lead us to believe that you would be deficient, and you could have been deficient just straight out of the gate of life. So that would be an area where we would look to supplement that.
So can you figure it out looking at epigenetic testing? It's got to be SNPs or whatever. Epigenetics is the big thing now, is turning genes on or off. So, right. But there's no epigenetic indicators that someone may be deficient.
So not a clear. I mean, you would have to look at the enzymes itself. So we just started this conversation with a company that can do about 70 different SNPs on the endocannabinoid system itself. So this is exciting because where plant-based cannabinoids can help with many different conditions. I mean, it's been studied for gastrointestinal, whether it's Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, IBS, lupus, Lyme, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, mental neurological disorders, just inflammation in the body, for pain. These are all the things that plant-based cannabinoids have been studied for. But what I think we can do when looking at these genetics testing and to find out if somebody would be prone to be deficient in endocannabinoids from enzymes that are overactive, then we could start to supplement with plant-based cannabinoids and then start to balance out the ECS and utilize this as a preventative healthcare measure. So we can target the ECS for preventative healthcare, for longevity, for anti-aging. So there's multiple different ways that we can stimulate, enhance the endocannabinoid system for health and wellness, many different ways.
Now, do you know much about heart rate variability? Because that heart rate variability kind of measures the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic and how quickly, you can rebalance yourself. Have they done any studies looking at CBD and increasing heart rate variability? Because that's a mortality indicator. And are there any studies on looking at that increasing heart rate variability?
I'm sure there are. I'm not familiar with them. I do know that CBD can function as a vasodilator. We do have CB2 receptors very much connected to our cardiovascular system. But as far as, the details of that, I'm not too familiar with it. And to be honest, it's been a bit overwhelming for us because sometimes I wish this was good for 2 or 3 things because we'd be a lot further along in our research. But, when you look at what the ECS connects to and where we have cannabinoid receptors in our body, it's a bit overwhelming because we have 51 different things that we want to do clinical studies on based on provider feedback that we're getting.
Yeah. Hey, Rebel, we need to sneak in this commercial before, don't we? And we'll give our guest a little chance to drink some water. He's been talking a lot. So you want to go to break real quick?
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the ageless blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk 4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
I'm back here with Dan Reed. He is the owner of Pico CBD IV. And I shouldn't say the owner. Okay, tell me.
Yeah. Director of Business Development.
Director of Business Development. Okay. He's the only person I know in the company. So to me, he's the president. So, I won't tell your boss that. Don't let him look at this podcast. But I wanted to get that commercial in because, and of course, somebody's cutting my grass outside. So I've been trying to mute myself. But we're going to start offering a lot of the products that he's working on. And we're going to work closely with him and try to provide our listeners and whoever else the cutting edge products that they're working on and they've already created. So just stay tuned for that. But let's continue. It sounds like it's too good to be true because when you say it's like it fixes everything, somebody thinks it's a snake oil. But this is just an overwhelming system. You just think of the nervous system. It innervates almost every cell in your body, and it's trying to send a message to every cell in your body. And it sounds like that's what the endocannabinoid system is doing also.
Yeah, it's connected to everything. Like I said, we have trillions of receptors in the body that are responding to either endogenous or exogenous cannabinoids. This is a system that is working 24/7, 365 to keep us healthy, to catch things early. It's mind-blowing that this is not taught in medical school curriculum. It's almost sickening. And you have to think, is it not being taught because there is a plant that naturally stimulates this system, that there's a plant that naturally supports and enhances this system? I don't know. I could go down a deep rabbit hole there, but it's in my opinion, this is the future of health and wellness, is keeping this system balanced, because this system keeps your whole body balanced.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been a doctor for over 30 years, and I understand the pharmaceutical industry. They demonize anything that they can't make money off of. And as soon as they can make money off of it, all of a sudden it's the best thing in the world.
Right.
And you say they have all of these drugs that are in the pipeline. Just as soon as they figure out how to make money off of it, you'll start seeing commercials. Yep. You'll start seeing, and then they'll start to demonize your company because they want, that's kind of how the pharmaceutical industry works in my experience.
It's and we're expecting that for sure. It's as food is medicine, right? Food is preventative healthcare. I believe we have everything that we need here that's natural. Mm-hmm. When you look at, you could honestly say this, and this is a really bold statement, but if you go back to how pharmaceutical companies started, they were taking natural things from earth and creating synthetic versions. Now, you could say that nearly 100% of pharmaceutical drugs at one point was inspired from something natural here on earth. We have everything here. And for some reason, plant-based medicine became alternative medicine. Although that we've used this for 5,000 years, pharmaceuticals only been around for 100, 150 years. And but that's all of a sudden primary medicine. Let's think about the trial and error that the indigenous people had to go through to figure out what is safe today. Just taking different plants and herbs and dying or getting sick for weeks at a time, to where we know now what is safe and what is not safe. So people now are looking for a more holistic approach. People are looking for non-synthetic options. And
Yeah.
I'm excited about the future because not just what we're doing with plant-based cannabinoids, and there's a lot of other things that we're working with the Pico technology outside of hemp as well. But there's a big shift happening right now. We're getting the synthetics out of our food, which is huge, as we mentioned that food is medicine. What I really would like to see next is, after we accomplish this battle with big food, is getting the synthetics out of our medication.
That's going to be a tough road to hoe, because that's a, pharmaceutical industry is in the pockets of every politician in every state and every, so it's tough. But so we got like about 3 or 4 minutes left. I guess you can just kind of wrap it up and just tell us some of the products that you guys have and how they can help people. I know you have the tinctures. You have some things that are topical that you use for pain. And so just kind of give us a broad group of what is out there so people can know what is available.
Yeah. So with the other company, which is separate from Pico IV, there's about 150 different products that are plant-based, cannabinoid related, isolating different cannabinoids, whether it's CBG or CBN. A lot of people use CBN for sleep, the CBDA, CBGA. There's a lot of different ones, but you can get these in creams. You can get them in salves. If you're dealing with pain, you could rub this on your skin. There's massage oils. We have multiple different types of tinctures. I mean, there's gummies. There's so many different products. There's like 150 different products on that page. But with that side of the company, it's really more B2B, to where they can white label these for other doctors or nurses that want to carry a line with their own branding on it. So that is something that's an option. And really what we want to look at doing is where people have a master reset of the endocannabinoid system with getting an infusion, doing this like every 4 to 6 weeks, just as a master reset, and then being able to supplement daily with these just to keep it in balance. So your body is operating the way that it was intended to, in helping with any type of deficiencies that you have, and really safeguarding you and utilizing it more as preventative healthcare measures.
And tell me about I'm interested because I want to carry some of these products. Tell me about the drinks. What how does that work?
Yeah.
What's in it? And
Yeah, so they make like little shots, like little 2-ounce shots that you can drink it. It's all water soluble, so the absorption rate is so much higher than oil-based products. Plus, it'll hit you quicker. They also have beverage enhancers that comes in a squeeze bottle, and you just do a squeeze into one of the drinks. I think there's like 30 uses in one of those. They're also doing like popsicles, where you could do popsicles. You could get that with like, all the other different cannabinoids, CBD or the D8s or whatever you're looking for.
All right. Yeah. Well, okay, Rebel, I think it's time for us to wrap it up. Is that correct? Rebel's my producer. She runs the show around here. It's time to wrap things up, Rebel.
It is. If Dan could give the information on where to find everything he just said outside of Pico IV. Is there a website?
It's going to come through Taylor MD Formulations. That's what
Yeah.
I said. They do more B2B. So go to Taylor MD Formulations. We're planning on carrying as much of that line as possible. And I'll try and, give information out on the podcast and in my school group. But he's the mastermind, and I'll be following his direction. And we'll make sure that you have these things available, because it's important. And if we don't talk about it, I don't know who's going to talk about it. So I'm dedicated to talking about this because, again, in Ageless Blueprint, we follow the wisdom of the ages. And that's what cannabinoids are all about. So thank you so much, Mr. Reed. I really appreciate it. And you're getting up early and coming on with us. So we really appreciate it. And we'll stay in touch. Maybe we'll do a little follow-up as this whole system progresses. We'll touch bases with you again to see what else you've come up with. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, we kind of shot this one from the hip. Maybe
Yeah.
if we do another one, we could do it more focused on, something very
One thing.
specific.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But, it's good to get, for people to get an overview of this whole thing so we can kind of knock down some of that stigma and that propaganda that's kind of hurt this whole concept. So, all right.
Yeah.
So I know it's time to go here. You guys, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for joining Dr. Taylor today. If you missed any part of this show, just check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Ageless Blueprint is every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. Together, we discovered ancient secrets to better health through science and spirituality made for modern times. Until then, feel free to check out agelessblueprintpodcast.com and TaylorMDFormulations.com for more information.